Hello and welcome to day 3 of the Upstream Digital Transformation Conference. Thank you very much for being with us today. Before we get started, if we could do a quick sound check. You should see a raise your hand button somewhere on the screen. Could people just click that and raise their hand so we can just make sure that you can hear us? Okay, great. We've got some hands going up, so I think people can hear us. So the only other thing I want to mention on that front is we will have time for Q&A at the end of the session after the presentation. You can submit questions using the questions function, which on the Brella app looks like a little speech bubble with a question mark in it. So if you could submit your questions there, we will come to those at the end. So then we have our first session today, first of 3. We have a presentation from Paul Vaigafa, Commercial Manager for Europe at Data Gumbo. We will also have with us Maxine Aikenhead, who is the Business Development Director at Data Gumbo, and Maxine will be answering questions with Paul after the presentation. But for now, I will hand over to you, Paul. Yes, stage is yours.
Cool. Thank you very much, Charles. Appreciate the invitation there, and thanks for the opportunities to give a presentation here on Data Gumbo. So welcome everybody to day 3 there of the Upstream Digital Transformation Conference on data. My name is Paul Vaigafa. I'm the Commercial Manager for Data Gumbo. The topic I'm going to be covering today is the increased trust in your data and maximizing its value to your business. So Data Gumbo is the largest smart contract network for industry powered and secured by blockchain, and we've been recently awarded the most disruptive innovator by Forbes. So our solution GumboNet automates your manual processes, which solves trust issues between companies. This is completed by taking your natural language paper contract and digitizing those commercial and operational terms. This removes any opportunities for interpretations, which normally causes disputes when invoices arrive. So I'm going to use a simple analogy here, if everyone can see here on what we can see here is swipe and go, which is basically just putting fuel in. Everyone sees it, it happens all the time. So we all go to a petrol station and we pump in fuel or diesel. We know upfront what the price of the gas is based on the quality and the volume that we pump. When we swipe and pay, we're making an agreement with both the petrol station and the bank to process an automated immediate payment from our accounts. And when we go to industry of any type, whether it be oil and energy, renewables, manufacturing, mining, construction, maritime, I believe we could all agree that it's not as simple as going to the petrol station. There are field tickets, invoices, disputes, reconciliations, delayed payments, etc. We have checkers checking checkers, and they're checking supporting documentation, certificates, spreadsheets, and systems. It's a very slow 20+ step process. The customers don't really know what they're paying for, and the service companies don't really get paid. So most of this data is supplied to you at the back of an invoice and pulled from different systems at the end of the month or at the end of the job. So which brings us over to the industry of oil and gas. So Data Gumbo wasn't always a blockchain smart contract company. We actually started off by building our own IoT platform in the beginning. So we went to an oil company and we showed them how awesome our IoT platform was. And the response from the oil company was, guys, job well done, fantastic. Although we've already pumped millions into our own IoT platform, and therefore there's no real need for an IT platform from yourselves. However, one of the biggest challenges that they faced was with their contractors. They found themselves that if the drilling contractors could increase their drill pipe connections quicker by 1 minute, they would save $250 million throughout their entire fleet. So we asked the question, how come this isn't happening right now? And their answer was, well, go and speak to the contractors. So they did. So we did. They gave us the name of the contractor and we went and spoke to them and we asked them the same question. They already knew the answer. Yes, we know we can increase our drill pipe connection speed by 1 minute. And we asked them, why aren't you guys doing it already? Like, oh, two things. Is that it's a huge investment in the beginning to start off with for us to upgrade our fleet to do this. And then the second point is that we can't trust our operator, our customer, to pay us any form of bonus, because the data that they have is different to the data that we have, and they will often try and find any reason possible to not pay that bonus. So the issue there was trust in between two parties, and that's where smart contracts on a blockchain framework, GumboNet, was born. So we solve issues, trust issues between companies that have that struggle to be able to come to to meet at the medium point to get those invoices paid. So when you move further over here, it's like, what is the smart contract? A smart contract, if we start in the middle, you're basically taking your natural language contract you have today, your paper contract between yourself and your counterparty, and you digitize those commercial and operational terms. Now, in order for those terms to be fed and in order for those terms to work, you need to have data. Data is a source of everything. Now, when you look over to the left-hand side over here, you'll have buyers, suppliers, and logistics. As of today, all of these companies here, if you will, have their own sets of data that they look at themselves. The only time that anybody could see the data that they are looking at is at the back of an invoice in today's world. With GumboNet, we would pull the data from these different, from the buyers, suppliers, and the logistics, and sits into a data source which goes over to our data lake here called the Data Gumbo portal. Now we move more in towards the blockchain area, where each participant has a node, the blockchain for the agreements. So what we will do is that we'll distribute the events of the transactions to the private network of participants. This is your supporting documentation, your sensor data, certificates, business logic, transactions, invoices, etc., etc. So the smart contract, that'll enforce the business rules, and it will validate the data between all of the different data sources. The nodes will verify that all participants have the exact same data and business logic and results. Once the nodes reach an agreement and everything checks out by 100% consensus, it's all written to the blockchain. And once it's written to the blockchain, it now goes down towards the ERP system down the bottom, down here. Now, there's no mining, there's no cryptocurrency, there's none of that type of stuff there. Our blockchain setup is an industrial private setup at all. There's no reconciliation that's needed after the invoice is sent, because it was all agreed at the beginning of the smart contract part. So if at any time, any of the participants within this private network want to make a change to a particular transaction or to some supporting documentation, all the participants will receive a notification that someone is trying to make a change to the information that was already agreed. And that's where we are there. So what we have done here is that you're basically turning the data that is available today and turning it into value. So when we go a little bit further here, you can see that this picture is that you're looking at the IoT data here in the middle. The data is the source of all types of different use cases and the advantages to everything. Everybody talks about liberation of data, but then what do you use it for? You pull it out from one system, put it into a spreadsheet, and then you move it into another system. But what we will do is that we will take that data, and that will feed the events of a smart contract. Like I mentioned with a smart contract already, and what it does, it will automate a lot of your operational and your commercial terms. Which brings us out to the outer skirts over here. When you look at the joint interest billing or your real-time license operating costs, these can represent different types of use cases. The use cases could be anything to do with personnel, rental equipment, commodity haulage, movement of rigs, etc., etc. Once that information is picked up, it goes over here towards the audit side of things, where you have your background in supporting documentation, your certificates, and your transactions, etc., etc. These can be shared with auditors towards the end of the year, which then brings us over to the ESG side of things, which is a hot topic on everybody's agenda these days. We found that 90% of this data that is collected within the use case on the IoT platform or from the IoT platform crosses together to go works towards your ESG by capturing those emissions. And they align perfectly with reporting processes to the authorities, which then brings you over here towards the money meter, what we call a money meter. And this is a contract performance. How are we doing? How are we doing on the performed contract versus your planned natural contract that has been written? All of this is wrapped around trust, and it sits on our Data Gumbo blockchain called GumboNet. So again, we are consuming the data that is available and turning it into value. So we go towards this use case here on the real-time license operating costs. You'll find that it would have your labor and your supervision, that could be your contractors and your milestones and different progress, your chemicals and supplies, measuring and capturing all the details of when the equipment had turned up, your fuel, power, your water, your equipment rentals and usage and other services. All of this data, all of these sectors are all normally caught into, or all the data is captured into different systems, which then we can capture to run towards your money meter. And you can see live on how your process, on how that one particular field or fields are going at any given time. This then brings us over towards the digitalization of value, which is looking at how the invoices are being produced today. As of today, from the market that we've been speaking to, which is quite a lot of people, you can say that it will go, there's a huge manual process, which will go from sensor reading, paper tickets, going towards a signature, over towards a dispute, and then there'll be an invoice system going towards a reconciliation part, and then there'll be a waiting on 30 to 90 days payments. This is a long manual process, and this is where we are today. At some case, some companies will be going more towards the e-commerce side of things. On the Data Gumbo smart contract part, which is GumboNet, you'll see straight from sensor reading. Now, it wouldn't have to be straight from sensor reading. It can be pulled from different types of systems or certificates, if you will. Everything that sits in between here won't take any longer than a few seconds. It's where a smart contract is made and you'll have touchless transactions all the way through to automatic payment. So a 16-step process now becomes 3. And we have some use cases here that we will share, both on the offshore side of things and on the onshore part. This is a use case that we have on the Monument field in the Gulf of Mexico, which is done between Equinor and one of the large 4 service companies. So this contract was a 520-page contract, and we found 42 different use cases. Again, we took the operational and commercial terms and we digitized those. Out of the 42 different use cases that we identified, we worked with 3. The 3 cases were personnel, rental equipment, and drilling fluids. And you can understand that tracking of personnel and rental equipment can be quite challenging because the prices vary depending on when the equipment and personnel arrive and when they're in use. Today, they're tracked manually, and the data being collected from several different systems can be quite tricky in most cases. GumboNet removes that. We connected to 5 different systems to be able to produce an automatic invoice. So we removed the whole manual process by using the same data that people were already picking up already. So the results here for Monument is that we reduced the invoice time down to 1 day from anything from 37 to 191 days. When we did an apples for apples check, it was the 98% plus on the accuracy to the manual process. So we took our results that took us seconds to produce to the manual process, and we found there's a 98% plus accuracy together. So we removed the opportunities for dispute and interpretation and reduced the costs there for contract administration. And that was by the use of data from different multiple systems to achieve the automation. How the smart contracts help is that it was, well, those terms that used to be interpreted are now become binary, and that automated calculation There's a streamlined process. There's a complete transparency in both sides between Equinor and their service company, and there was an improved cash flow and a reduction there in the day sales outstanding for the service company. So the success story here for the offshore project out in Monument is that we're awarded a field in Norway called Johan Sverdrup. This is one of Equinor's most advanced fields within their portfolio. We're given 17 use cases to work with, and we worked with 4. The results that we had were very good, and they've asked us to look at the other 13 as well to implement those. We've also been working on another field in Brazil, in Peregrino Sea, where we'll be working together with Equinor and another large service company as well. On the water haulage side of things here, on the onshore part, this was a project that was awarded to us by the Oil and Gas Blockchain Consortium, which is now called the Oil and Gas Energy Blockchain Consortium. This was led up by Equinor and again, one of their other service companies, where it was a water haulage there, so movement of wastewater from the onshore pad to the wastewater facility. So before GumboNet was implemented, the trucking company would turn up, fill up the wastewater, go over to the wastewater facility, and then drop it off and then leave. They used the paper ticketing, so funnily enough, every single trucking fill was always at 100%. Once we implemented GumboNet to the solution, we asked the operator to put a sensor here at the onshore pad, so that when the trucking company would turn up, you would be able to see and track how much content was actually gone from the onshore pad into the truck. Now, with the trucking company, we asked them to find a trucking company that could that had a tracking within their trucks, and they awarded one to them, and then we were able to tap into what the trucking company were using to track their drivers. So from there, we're able to collect the data on how much water was being collected at the onshore pad, where the truck was at that time when it entered, and when it left, to arriving at the wastewater facility and dropping off its contents. Now, within a tolerance, if the truck had dropped off within a tolerance that was agreed upfront between Equinor and the service company, the trucking company would receive a payment automated straight away. And that removed a lot of their manual process when going from 32-step process down to 1. So the reduction time there went down to 1 day from 32 steps. 90% of the accuracy of the automated invoices versus the manual process was correct. You removed the opportunities there for dispute and interpretation, and your reduction in cost and contract administration. And that was again by the use of the data that was available and turning it into value. How smart contracts helped is that there was a binary, turned into a binary code, and that we automated about 1,200 tickets or invoices at a 90% approval rate. Again, we did a streamlined process going down from 32 steps down to 1, and it was complete transparency, and it was about just under 200,000 barrels of wastewater that was collected. There was a reduction there in day sales outstanding, and then it was done over 5 roll pads at 6 saltwater dispensers. The success story here out of the 5 roll pads is that we're now being rolling out to 290 roll pads within the US for Equinor. And when you're making this type of a change, there needs to be a bit of guidance and how that's done. So between both parties, between Equinor and the service company, we've put them through a whole program that we've done together on both sides with them. And again, when you're looking at different types of data and having to agree on the value of these types of data, we normally take the one which is the closest source of truth. And that's where you're able to choose the data from. On this part here, you'll see that these are the areas where we see GumboNet applicable within all these different industries here. So companies within these industries here can become both customers and both partners as well. We also have a partnership program and an ambassador program that we work with too. So I'd like to thank everybody for listening to presentation on how you can turn your data into real value. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks very much for that, Paul. So I think we've got some time for Q&As now. Looking through some of the some of the cues here. So potentially this one, where does the smart contract network exist? Is it owned by the contractor or the operator? Paul or Maxine, if either of you would like to take that one.
You taking a break, Paul? So the smart contract is actually on our network, which is cloud-based. It's a distributed ledger, so the parties that are involved in that contract all have access to the same field data and contract, which is negotiated online.
Okay, good stuff. Next one, the role of lawyers and legal counsel for contracts seems to be growing rapidly in oil and gas. Does GumboNet mitigate the use and involvement of lawyers, or are they still a necessary part? If so, what happens if there's a dispute?
I think we reduced disputes, right, Paul? They're reduced, and all these terms and conditions are agreed up front. And but we do have on the network, we do have a dash that shows any flagged issues, so any issues that were disputed, so the data doesn't match or something isn't right, so that gets flagged and people can address that. But they're looking at the same data source, they're looking at the same field data again, looking at the same contract. Paul, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say no, it doesn't remove the need for lawyers. I mean, like, you still need to have lawyers around as well, because the parts that we're looking at is, again, on the commercial and operational terms. We're not going more into the on the fraudulent side of things. I mean, we remove all that sort of stuff as much as possible, but sometimes, depending on whatever the use cases that haven't been automated, those there still remain open there for the lawyer part as well. So yeah.
Okay, no, great. So one from Martin Dalesy here. Does the buyer establish that the underlaid service delivery is of greater value than the delayed payment? Does the benefit of smart contract not lie mainly with the service company?
Sorry, can you repeat that question again there, Charles?
I'll read that one out again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does the buyer establish the underlaid service delivery? Well, the second part of the question, does the benefit of the smart contract lie with the service company rather than the operator?
No, so when we're setting up a smart contract, right, we're always looking for a win-win within the contract, right, within a smart contract. So whenever there are interpretations that are made, and that could be, okay, is it 12 o'clock your time or 12 o'clock on a Friday? But is that 12 o'clock your time or is that 12 o'clock my time? And that can always make a bit of a difference, you know, within those particular contracts. So there always is a win-win. One, the service company get paid on time. And then two, you know, the operator, they can see full transparency on everything that's actually been paid, on all the services that were completed and why they are running to such a payment. So there is a win-win for both. Yes.
Okay, great. So one from Orlando Sanchez here. I think wanted to check the blockchain technology. Is it of use purely for payments, or are there other applications as well?
I'll take that.
Okay.
So we use it for multiple things. We're using it for regulatory reporting also. So for example, flaring at refineries, one use case we worked on where had 3 flares in the refinery are reported through the customer's platform. And when 3 flares were triggered, then a PDF was spat out to send to regulatory reporting, and then also that triggers maybe the fine, the payment, if should the flare happen. So that's to automate that, and that creates a lot of trust in that environment too.
Sorry, yes, we're going to comment on that, Paul.
No, I didn't know. No, I didn't need to add on top of that.
No, okay, great. Well, I think that's all the questions that we've got for now. So
I've got one here actually.
Oh yes, sorry.
Did we answer? Yeah, we said, where does the network exist? Where does the smart network exist? And I think I said that was cloud-based. That was the other one for legal.
Sorry, there's one I missed here.
You see these questions? Yeah.
There's one just that I think following up on what you were saying, Maxine, for regulatory reporting, have you shown or shared your technology with the regulators of relevant countries?
I think right now, I believe we're talking to SASB. We do have various organizations that we're talking to, like the International Association of Drilling Contractors and various organizations. But I'm not sure what senior management are doing as far as talking to regulators. So I don't know the answer to that really.
Okay, great. There's actually one from Peter here as well. How do you readily get the buy-in of suppliers and contractors when operators are the ones asking for your service?
Paul, do you want to talk value calculator or something?
Yeah, sure. So normally when we're talking to a lot of the service companies, of course, they would only really like to see what is the real benefit for the service company. And so we would go through an actual use case together with them, where we present these are particular cases that would be relevant for your type of business, and these are the results that we've seen in other businesses as well that is very similar to yours. And then we normally build a particular value calculation there, where we look at an analysis of what the real value could be towards that particular service company. At the same time, funnily enough, even though a lot of the operators from the service company side of things, they're like, why would the operator want to pay quicker? What's in there for them? And for the operator, they also have a whole bunch of manual processes they would also like to get rid of as well. And if they're able to find a service company that is just as willing or is as digital, as they say they are, then that would be something that they could that would entertain. For the companies that we have been speaking to, both in Europe and over in the US, with a service company and oil company, they've been quite willing to be able to look at different cases, look at different solutions on how can we really turn this information that we've paid millions for and actually really turning it into something useful, right? So the reception on both sides have been quite welcoming.
Okay, brilliant. Right, well, I think that's probably all we've got time for now. So thank you very much, Paul, for the presentation, and Maxine with the questions as well. So we are going to swap over to our next session of the day, which is our panel talking about all issues data. So thanks very much for joining us now, and hopefully see you again soon. And yes, thanks you again to Paul and Maxine.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.